Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth for nearly 2 decades, while fighting wars on multiple fronts, managing political betrayals, watching his children die, and enduring a plague that killed millions of people under his watch. He didn't crack. He didn't abandon his principles under pressure. He didn't let power corrupt him. And he never intended anyone else to ever read how he did it. What you're about to hear comes from a private journal, the Meditations, written entirely for himself as a daily practice of mental discipline. It is not philosophy. It is a pressure management operating system. Most people think of Stoicism as passive, as resignation, as gritting your teeth and enduring what you cannot change. That is a fundamental misreading. Stoicism, as Aurelius practiced it, is the most aggressive mental performance system ever developed. It is about maintaining complete clarity and decisive action under conditions that would paralyze most human beings. Today, we break down the 5 core practices from the Meditations that kept one of the most powerful and most tested men in history mentally unbreakable. Not as historical curiosity. As a system you can install today. Every morning, before facing the world, Marcus Aurelius would mentally rehearse the difficulties ahead. Not to dread them, to neutralize them. He wrote in the Meditations, "Begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial." He wasn't being pessimistic. He was inoculating himself against surprise. By the time the difficult person or difficult circumstance arrived, he had already processed his emotional response. The surprise factor, the primary trigger of reactive, poor decision-making, had been removed before the day began. This is Stoic Practice 1, Premeditation of Adversity. The practice: each morning, take 5 minutes to mentally walk through the 3 most likely friction points of your day. See them clearly. Decide in advance how you will respond, not react. The person who has already decided how to behave under pressure behaves infinitely better under pressure than the person deciding in real time, in the heat of the moment, with their emotional brain in control. Epictetus, the slave-turned-philosopher who became Aurelius's primary intellectual influence, built his entire philosophy on a single distinction: there are things within our control, and things outside our control. And the consistent misallocation of energy toward things outside our control is the primary source of human suffering and diminished performance. Aurelius practiced this with surgical precision. In every difficult situation, his first move was to categorize, what here is within my power. He then directed 100% of his energy toward that, and released everything else. Not with indifference. With discipline. This is Stoic Practice 2, the Dichotomy of Control. Application: when you face any significant challenge, draw a line down the center of a page. On one side, what I control. On the other, what I don't. Your plan lives entirely in the left column. Your emotional energy stops leaking into the right. This single practice, applied consistently, eliminates the majority of performance-destroying anxiety that plagues high-stakes environments. When Aurelius faced overwhelming problems, he used a technique that modern psychologists now recognize as decentering, the practice of mentally stepping outside yourself to gain true perspective. He called it the view from above. He would mentally zoom out, from his room, to Rome, to the empire, to the planet, to the cosmos, until the problem that had felt enormous was revealed at its actual scale. Not to dismiss it. To see it clearly. This is Stoic Practice 3. The application: when a problem feels all-consuming, ask, how significant is this in the context of my life at 80? In the context of human history, in the context of what genuinely matters. This is not avoidance. It is precision calibration. A problem seen at its true scale produces an appropriate response. A problem seen at inflated scale produces panic, paralysis, and decisions you'll regret when the scale corrects itself. Here is the counterintuitive center of Aurelius's entire system, the principle that makes Stoicism uniquely powerful compared to any other mental performance framework. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not wordplay. It is a complete reframe of how to relate to obstacles. Every barrier becomes information. Every difficulty becomes a directive. Every failure becomes a tool. Ryan Holiday built an entire book and a philosophy practiced by millions on this single line from the Meditations. The system: every time you encounter an obstacle, ask not, "How do I get around this?" but, "What is this obstacle showing me? What does it require of me?" This reframe converts resistance into fuel. The person who has internalized this never wastes energy fighting reality. They extract the lesson and advance. Marcus Aurelius returned to death, his own death, with striking regularity in the Meditations. Not morbidly. Purposefully. He used the contemplation of mortality as a precision tool for eliminating trivial concerns and restoring urgency to what actually matters. Confine yourself to the present appears in various forms throughout the Meditations, not as passive mindfulness, but as a performance directive. Because the person who feels the finitude of time does not waste it on resentment, ego protection, or trivial status contests. They act. They decide. They move. This is Stoic Practice 5, Memento Mori. The practice, once daily, briefly acknowledge that today is finite and non-renewable. Ask, am I spending today in a way that reflects what I actually value? Not as a guilt exercise, as a compass check. The person who has internalized mortality as a teacher makes categorically different decisions than the person living as though time is unlimited. 5 practices from one of history's most tested minds. The morning armor: inoculate yourself before the day's friction begins. The dichotomy of control: direct every ounce of energy toward what you can actually change. The view from above: see problems at their true scale before you respond to them. The obstacle is the way: convert resistance into direction. Memento Mori: let the awareness of mortality restore your urgency and your clarity. These are not ancient ideas. They are performance tools that work exactly as well in a modern office, boardroom, or competitive arena as they did on a Roman battlefield. Install one this week. One practice, consistently applied, will do more than 5 understood and ignored. If this changed how you think, subscribe. I break down these frameworks every week: the psychology, habits, and mental models of the world's highest performers, distilled into systems you can use. Drop a comment below. Which of these 5 Stoic practices are you implementing first?